Hey YouTube, it's Kel. I decided that tonight I'm going to talk about something pretty vulnerable, which I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprising myself by talking about it, but we're going to see how it goes. And if I can make it through the video, then I'll keep it up or I'll post it or whatever. But I wanted to talk about it because it's on my heart to share about what I call the face of homelessness. So I just wanted to relate, I guess, to people who have ever experienced homelessness in their life. And I wanted to say that I am the face of homelessness. And I know people would look at me and immediately have some kind of impression. You know, we all make first impressions and judgments and whatnot, but I want to share a little bit about me and then explain kind of how I got to that point. So essentially, some people have this idea that like homeless people are lazy or wanting to live off the system or whatever. And I just want to share. So I went to junior college. I was in high academic programs in high school. Well, depending on if I actually applied myself or not. But anyways, good score on the SATs. And then I went to junior college because, a long story, but my mom was disabled. And so, and all my friends were going to junior college. So I went to junior college. I transferred after 2 years to UC San Diego, graduated after 2 years. And because I was told, that's like the way to go. So, and after that, I did my first master's degree. Again, this first one was not to make me money. I've mentioned it before. It was a master's in biblical and theological studies, and we all know that's not a lucrative master's degree. So that one was not to make money, but I kept telling myself, if I just follow my heart, I'll end up in the right place. And, my mom was a big believer. If you follow your heart and you're passionate about something, you will end up making money at it, right? So I totally believe that. I still believe it, but it doesn't mean you're not going to have hiccups along the way. So I worked full time during that first master's degree. I'm just making the point that I have not been lazy, and you can still end up having a period of homelessness. So I had worked full time during my first master's degree, to which I had to commute over an hour each way, and then started working in social services, ended up getting my second master's degree, which was counseling psychology. And that was school at night on the weekends. And I worked full time during that second master's degree also. And so I put myself through that second master's degree, and I think I got both my master's degrees while I was in my 20s working full time. As we all know, social services or working as a therapist does not make the money, in my opinion, that it should, especially when you work in, treatment centers and whatnot, nonprofits. And that's what I did. Because again, I just thought, I'm going to follow my heart. It's going to work out. I know it's going to work out. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but it will. And so, but in my 30s, it just seemed like progressively, it was getting more and more expensive. I lived in Orange County, California at the time, and it was getting more just crazy expensive. And here I was, like a social worker / therapist working, and it went from a livable income to basically ultimately an unlivable income. And I will go into specifics of that later, but I shared in one of my first videos how I think it was 2018, lost 3 jobs due to layoffs, group layoffs in 1 year. And to no fault of my own, I would try to find another job, right after, and would get hired, put in hard work. And then, ultimately this happened 3 times within. And so I told everybody, the great thing is that the truth is it really did. It ended up leading to my dream job of my private practice, which I am so grateful for. So grateful. But what I did not mention in that video, because I was like, I'll tell people another time, is that, by the way, the shirt, I could not button it for the life of me. These nails are too crazy. So it's kind of like, anyways, that's a whole different ballgame. But so, if anyone wants to say I'm not the most authentic person, you will, I just sometimes say too much. Okay, so in between, what happened is, in between the last job fiasco and when I had to immediately start my private practice, I had been banking on, of course, the money from, I was like, there's no way I could be laid off again or like have a weird job situation. Not again. Like, there's no way. No, that cannot happen to someone 3 times in a row. And like, especially when I'd never had anything like that happen in the past. So, ultimately, what I did not tell, and I don't think I told anybody at the time, and this is why I wanted to post this video, because there was a month, I think it was a month, that I had to live out of my car because I basically had banked on one job and then it fell through. I had no money, no credit cards. My mom had just died. And I'm not saying that for pity, but I had no like family to rely on. My sister was out of state. She was my only family left. And I had my dog and I had 2 cats. And I was literally homeless. Thank God I had my car, which my heart breaks for people who do not have even a car, because I had a car with an alarm on it. And the alarm actually was the thing that made me able to sleep at night. Like, I felt like, because I could lock, when I slept in it at night, I could like turn on the alarm and I knew I was actually safe and protected. So, and then, but the craziest thing is I just kept thinking, how does this happen to someone in America right now with 2 master's degrees who was just trying to be like a community servant or like just a good positive contributor to society? When I worked, I gave like 60 hours a week to my jobs before private practice. I would work holidays. I worked my butt off. And so to ever qualify some people who happen to fall into what I would call like transitional homelessness and call them lazy, I had to tell my story because it can be so far from the truth and you feel so misunderstood. And the craziest part is that I felt so ashamed that I couldn't even talk about it with people. And here I was going into private practice and no one knew, because I knew how to present myself. I was, and professionally, I was able to have an office, a business office. I just happened to like be in between. I didn't even have enough money to save for like first and last month's rent and like, you know what I mean? So I had to be like in between and like, so it's crazy. So my dog had to sleep in my car. I remember this, like I would have to go put my dog in daycare when I went to work and then pick my dog up from daycare and he would sleep in the car with me at night. Thank God again. He was the cutest. I miss my dog. He was my baby. But, so, and again, no one ever knew. My clients again, if they ever see this video, they're going to be shocked if they saw me during that period of time and they would be like, I had no idea you were going through something like that. So, because of course, as a therapist, you don't tell your clients what you're going through, and I'm proud that I didn't, but, okay, so this is like, number one, I wanted to share this story, not just like, woe is me, but really to reduce the stigma of what homelessness is all about, in America. Because for someone who had a bachelor's from UC San Diego, 2 master's degrees, had worked 60 hours a week, but just happened to get laid off 3 times in a row, and a parent died who like could have possibly been where I would have stayed, was just like surreal to me at the time. So I wanted to share that to reduce stigma, number one, and if you're going through it, to feel less shame, because, really the crap can hit the fan. I don't know what the legality of sharing like profanity is on YouTube, but anyway, so I'll tone it down for here, but the crap can hit the fan And you really can have like, event after event after event that just is like ridiculous, and you end up in this position where you're like, what is going on? So that's number one. Number two, I remember my car was full of stuff because I was in between moves, and I'm sure, I don't know how, I think this person somehow knew I was in between because I was taking a nap in a McDonald's parking lot in the middle of the day, and my car was full of stuff. And I remember someone came up to me and they said, do you want me to buy you a meal? Which was just like, on the one hand, I knew it was super compassionate. On the other hand, I was like, again, how is it that I, am, again, we are sold this, like, I don't want to say bill of goods, but like, we are told this story that like the American dream, if you just work hard, educate yourself, go to work, have a good work ethic, which I did, like, you will succeed. You know what I mean? You will. And then like, I was just like, how do I told her no, obviously no thanks, and I wasn't insulted that she asked, but also I was like, I think she saw my car full of stuff. I don't know how she knew, but, so that was like number one. I felt, I was like ashamed, and then I was like, why am I ashamed? Why? These things happened to me, like they were out of my control, like 3 job losses of like rounds of layoffs. That was out of my control. And here I was feeling like I shouldn't be homeless for being like what I consider a public servant. You know what I mean? And then, so anyways, she was being sweet. I just felt like, gosh, how am I in this position? So then that was like one experience I remember. Another experience, I'm gonna die. Another experience, it killed me. Okay, so I had just moved back to California, and this is what the time I was like in between, because it's a long story. I had actually moved to Ohio briefly for the 3rd job that fell through. And then, because I was like, maybe California is just too expensive and I need to like reduce my living expenses. And so blah, 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 blah. Long story short, when I came back to California and I was living in my car in California, at night, I fell asleep, turned my alarm on. This was one night, I remember I was sleeping in a safe area. Thank God I knew California enough to know exactly where was safe. And so in the middle of the night, I have no idea how my dog didn't wake me up, how I didn't, wake up in the middle of it. I must have been just knocked out. I woke up in the morning to a freaking ticket. So like a freaking ticket for my registration not being up to date. And I remember thinking, so this is how like the poor kind of are, like it ends up being like a hole, or the people in poverty, it ends up being like a very difficult hole to get out of, And again, I'm not, there's no, like, yes, people can get out of it. I ended up in it. I have a safe, place that I'm living in right now with my, shelter, and, it's all good. But like, I just remember being like, how is it that, again, like you're gonna now I'm like literally living in my car for this moment, and I'm gonna get a ticket, like to add on like hundreds of dollars in expenses for like, and also I'm like, did the cop in the middle of the night see me sleeping in there? Like, it's just, so anyways, my point is I wanted to share it. Number one, I got through it. There's so many stories. I will write a book at some point, but mostly I wanted to share this because I am one of the many faces of homelessness. And it just, we should not stigmatize it. We should not generalize it. We should not think we understand people's stories or their, I just know so many people have just made comments about the homeless or, whatever, and it just, you have no idea when you've been through it, and you just, a lot of people who generalize, they have no idea what they're talking about, how, in this country, so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Number one, a lot of people feel like they have to just find a partner so that they can, make sure that doesn't happen to them, because if they're paycheck to paycheck, they need some, form of like security. But also like, we just never know, a medical expense comes up and puts people out on the street. Like there's just so many ways that that we, I think, really misunderstand some people who are out there who fall into a period of homelessness. I also think that sometimes there's like lessons of self-worth that you need to learn, which I'm not blaming people who are homeless, but like for me, for instance, I did ask for too little pay on what I deserved for a long time. I should have, if I look back, I should have asked for more. I should have set better boundaries. There's a lot I can look back and I can take ownership of, but also, we are living in a country where if you work hard, you should be able to afford a house once you've worked for a decent amount of years and like not end up in your freaking car, especially if you have advanced skills and like advanced education or whatever. So mostly I wanted to share this to reduce the stigma. If anybody has been out there ever, experiencing homelessness, even for a month, and especially if you feel shame about it and you don't want to talk about it because you feel like somehow it's your fault. Like, we are living in an era where there is a system of factors that could be out of your control. Now, I'm not saying people should have a victim mindset. No, like, obviously act as if it all depends on you, but you shouldn't, like, again, when I lost 3 jobs in a row, that's not on me, and I felt shame anyways. And so looking back, I just wanted to share so that anybody out there who could be in a similar situation, just know you're not alone. You're going to get through it. I ended up in a better situation, much better situation. It's almost like, I mean, again, it did shove me into like a dreams, like, I wouldn't say a dream scenario, but a dream job. And so like, it did push me, like, there's a saying that pressure can either create diamonds or burst pipes. I'm going to do a video on that at some point, but like, I would say that period of time definitely shoved me into my dream, a dream job. I have a few, but like a dream job at that time. Private practice was my dream job, so it shoved me into that. So I just wanted to say, like, you're not alone. If people stigmatize you, that's their problem. If they judge you, that's their problem. That's on them. It's ignorance. And it's also, they may not just have ever had to go through anything like that. So I wanted to send you love and say, I have been with you. I am with you. You're going to get through this. You will find a way to end up in a better situation if you want to. I have actually had clients who have been homeless and they want to be homeless, which is a whole different episode. But if you want to be out of it, like, I believe in you that you can be out of it. So I just wanted to I wanted to send some love tonight and say, you are not alone. And that's it. And I just wanted to say I wish you well, and hope you're having a good night wherever you are.